Hello and welcome to Precontation Points Video Snark. For those new here, I give sarcastic commentary to bad books. I know that I said in the past that I wasn't going to do any more romance novels on YouTube because, censorship. And fine, I get it. There are little kids on this site, and what if they stumble across a video of me describing an insanely graphic scene? But I was thinking about the entire thing, especially as I slogged through the third super boring book that I read on YouTube. One boring book was fine, but 3 in a row was too much. I specifically picked The Betrothed last time because Kira Cass was known to me for having written something awful, so I started to revisit the idea of doing a romance novel just to have something that I could actually make a long commentary about, and as I was mulling it over, a thought occurred to me: for connotation points, use metaphors. Amazing. I kind of wish I thought of it sooner before I slogged through all of those dull books for YouTube. Anyway, if you've been around the channel, you might have noticed my videos about Torn Between Alphas. It was simultaneously something that I had been thinking about doing, but also sort of test run of these metaphors. I'm not quite sure what kind of metaphor that I'll be using for the Mister. I guess that when I get to the first scene, I might have more of a clue as to the general theme of the book and choose something there. Like with the Torn Between Alphas review, if you're having trouble following the metaphors, you're probably too young to be watching my videos, or if you're asexual, then you're excused from the conversation. Anyway, enough about that. On to talking about why I specifically picked the Mr. Do I actually have to explain my reasoning? I sure hope that everybody knows who E.L. James is, but according to some of the reviews, this is also another pull-to-publish Twilight fanfiction, which surprises me not one bit. Before the story even starts, James defines the word daily for us, because she apparently thinks that we're just that stupid. I simultaneously hope that this isn't a precursor for how the rest of the story will go, but also really hope that this actually is said precursor, because of aforementioned blondness with the past several books I've done on YouTube. Prologue. We open on well, do y'all remember from the 50 Shades series how there would sometimes be flashbacks to Christian's childhood that were incoherent and nonsensical? Yeah, apparently this is now a trademark of James to write like this. Because we open on an incoherent mess. A young girl is running from something, on the run, starving, dirty, cold. It's Christmas, which is mentioned a couple of times across 2 pages, in case you missed it the first time. Like with a lot of prologues, this adds nothing at all to the plot. And I'd like to argue that it drags the entire writing down, because I'm thinking about those immature Christian Grey scenes and just how tedious that they were to get through, or should I say, try and slog through them. And it makes me feel like the rest of the series is going to be in the same incoherent style. Chapter 1. And then, because we're apparently going to go there, page 1, paragraph 1. We literally open on an unnamed male character talking about having a string of meaningless flings with a bunch of women whose names that he can't even be bothered to remember. I hate this already. He goes on to explain that tonight is slightly different because he slept with Caroline, except that not only is she his friend, but she's his brother's wife and widow. Oof, some real Hamlet nonsense up in there. Main character's name is Maxim, and at least it was introduced on the first page. I really hate first-person books that take ages to introduce the main character's name. Caroline is looking for a way to forget her loss. Maxim is looking to remember his dead brother. All in all, we're off to an amazing start. I feel like I've really picked a winner here, guys. The next morning, Maxim wakes up to a note from Caroline inviting him to dinner with Daddy, and something that I'm really hoping is a typo, but it says Step Sow. Really, really hope that it's a typo. Maxim is full of regret over the entire situation with Caroline and wonders how it is that the entire thing got out of hand so fast, especially since Kit is barely cold in the ground the first time that they did it. He lounges in bed for a moment and thinks about his dead brother, how he was always everybody's favorite, to the point where everybody picked him, including Caroline. But as Max continues to think about this, he's like, but Caroline and I are good for each other. He said that they scratched itches for each other. Yes, the book used the phrase, scratched an itch. Might want to go see a doctor because you probably have something. He thinks some more about Kit, how he was killed because he was driving a motorcycle recklessly on a rainy night. but it doesn't quite fit with his brother's behavior, which was Mr. Sensible. He had a sensible job and usually drove a sensible car, which is the opposite of Max, who is the standard romance novel bad boy who doesn't get along with his family and doesn't fit in. Yawn, nothing to see here. Move along. He goes down to the basement to keep fit by jogging and doing fencing, and there's another F word that he claims also keeps him fit, which, ew. Max works out and tries not to think about Caroline or Kit. Instead, he thinks about how he's basically spent his life up until this point partying and never needing to lift a finger a day in his life. On the other hand, Kit was the one who apparently did everything in the family. However, he feels like all of this is going to change because he's Kit singular heir now. Max goes on to say that he and Caroline have known each other since they were 13. They were each other's first, which Max describes as disastrous, but then Caroline married Kit despite clearly only just wanting to continue to make the beast with two backs with Max. Yep, I went there since I couldn't help it with the Hamlet parallels. Wrong play, but whatever. Max finally decides that he values Caroline's friendship more than a quick roll in the hay and tries to convince himself that they're incompatible anyway. He then gets ready to go meet the family solicitors and leaves. How is in the Georgian splendor of Brook Street, the firm of Pavel, Marmont, and Hoffman has been the family solicitor since 1775. Please let me stress how much that I do not care. Oh, apparently Max is some kind of Earl. This story keeps getting better and better, and by better, of course I mean worse. And Max has inherited the title from Kit. Max takes a moment to explain about the title to the readers, how he made peace with the fact that Kit would get everything when they were teenagers, but not all of it belongs to Max now. And then Max thinks about how Caroline apparently got nothing, not even a penny, I guess, because women can inherit, or whatever sexist nonsense. I don't really care, but it'll probably be a plot point. Can't wait. Right as Max is thinking about how Caroline is probably going to challenge the will, she texts him. He ignores her and decides that he needs somebody with less strings, and also thinks about drugs, because, yeah, our central love interest, ladies and gentlemen, a guy who treats women like cheap tissues and does recreational drugs. He hooks up with some girl named Heather, and I'm already over it. At least it wasn't too graphic, and we kind of skipped to the after bit. She works in television, or telly, as she calls it. This book makes every available opportunity to remind you that it is set in Britain, and I'm already sick of it. The next morning, Max tries to think of how to get Heather out the door in the quickest way possible. He also remembers that he got a bunch of texts and ignored a bunch of calls from Caroline. Max isn't exactly thrilled by Caroline trying to reenact the obsessed girlfriend meme. He also thinks about how his new title also comes with a lot of responsibility. He seems more upset with the thought that he can no longer do whatever he likes whenever he wants to. Finally, Heather wakes up and Max tries to get her out as quickly as possible without being rude. He knows that he'll never call her, but accepts her number anyway. Then they awkwardly stand around and make awkward small talk while awkwardly waiting for the Uber to show up. Did I mention that it's awkward? I think that what's worse is that James is trying to set Max up to be some kind of super talented guy with a lot of hobbies like DJing and photography, but it's all just crammed into a single page in this awkward morning after encounter, and it is not good at all. As Heather leaves, she tells Max that she hopes he finds what he's looking for, and Max again wallows in his grief, but also rage that this is his life now thanks to his brother dying. Chapter 2. I'm going to stop before I even get off from the first page of the second chapter because the entire thing randomly shifts from first person past to third person present, and it's such a weird way to write. I'm not even sure if I would mind the random POV switches so long as the tense doesn't change. Why? What is happening? We open on Elisa. I have no idea how to pronounce that, but sure. She appears to be from some foreign country but now lives in London. She's one of the maids who comes to clean Max's apartment even though she's never met the guy and had literally never even seen him before. And I'm going to stop James right here because, wow, there is nothing remotely okay with having a cleaning lady from a foreign country who doesn't have a firm grasp of English suddenly becoming the romantic interest of somebody like Max. I mean, for anybody to become his romantic interest, red flag alert. But when you're throwing in currently loaded topics like race, and I'm also thinking that Alicia's struggle to learn English is probably going to play a role in consent, because I think that we all know how much James loves writing about people not consenting. But I feel like all of this is going to become more relevant as the story progresses, so more on this probably in the future. Anyway, Elisa gets to the apartment, and even though we don't actually know whose apartment that it is, there's literally been only one character that we've been actually introduced to so far. When she gets in, she has a moment of panic because the alarm was turned off, but after a moment when she doesn't hear anything, she thinks that maybe the guy just forgot to arm it. She goes about to get herself ready for the cleaning and then gets her cleaning supplies. She goes to the master bedroom where she finds the apartment owner asleep on the bed, naked, and geez, how traumatizing. Although it's also not really Max's fault, so it's kind of hard to hate him for this thing. Don't worry, I'm still not a fan. Lisa obviously flees the bedroom as quickly as possible. Once in the living room, she focuses on how angry and disappointed she is that he's still there because she wouldn't be able to play his piano. She has to focus on that disappointment because, well, nothing like seeing a stranger's naked body. Awkward. She goes back to the bedroom because she still has work to do, but hears Max in the shower. She thinks briefly about leaving, but worries about being fired and knows that she needs this job. There's a hint about Elisa's background, which seems to be coming from some sort of abusive situation, which I find rich coming from the absolute queen of domestic abuse stories. As Elisa is putting some clothes into the wash, Max calls out a goodbye to the previous cleaning lady. Elisa wonders if the company had bothered to tell him that they were going to be sending somebody else. However, I'm of the opinion that Max is so self-absorbed that he would literally not notice either way, but Elisa is cheered with the knowledge that Max has left and quickly goes about her cleaning. She also mentions a door that she was told by the previous cleaning lady is off-limits. Is this 50 Shades of Grey? Geez, James is nothing if not predictable. Elisa finishes her cleaning, then works up her courage to go play the piano. We then switch back over to Max again. POV switching in the middle of a chapter. Thanks, I hate it. He goes to the family estate, which is obviously Kit's home when he was alive, but now has passed to Max. He spends a moment talking with the family butler before he goes upstairs to where Caroline is. And Caroline, she's worked herself up into estate. Not because her husband just died. No, don't be silly. She's upset because Max has been ignoring her for the past 2 days. Because priorities. Caroline knows that Max has been spending his nights with random meaningless women, but yet, for some reason, she still wants him. Even Max is at a loss as to why Caroline still wants him after throwing all of that in his face. She complains that she had to endure the dinner with Daddy, and that word again, step-sow, which makes me think that it's not actually a typo at all. But she had to endure the dinner with the two of them by herself, which don't know why we're supposed to care about any of this, but okay. However, despite the dinner, she seems more upset with the fact that she had to spend her nights alone. Again, priorities. Max says that Kit left him everything, and he means everything. Finally, something reasonable for Caroline to get upset about. Max reassures her that he's not going to kick her out, but at the same time can't help but feel like she's only loved Kit for his money and title rather than his charming personality. Caroline is trying to worm her way into Max's pants when the butler comes in with coffee and biscuits. I have never been so thankful to see a cup of coffee in my life. As Caroline pours coffee for them, Max has a strange thought. Recalling a fragment of a dream I had last night, or was it this morning, a young woman, an angel, possibly the Virgin Mary or a nun in blue, standing in my bedroom doorway watching over me as I slept. Please, don't let this be a precursor to a weird religious undertone for this book. Please, I'm begging you. Even Max is confused by the random thought, only to be like, but I'm not religious. Caroline then randomly says that she thinks she might be pregnant, but not with Max's kid, with Kit's, which would complicate things if Kit had a child. However, despite the fact that Max has been viewing the title and the role involved as nothing but an annoyance, he's viewing the possibility of having a niece or nephew like it's also a bad thing. Pick a lane. And, yeah, that's the first 2 chapters of The Mister. It's already shaping up to be quite a hot mess. I feel like I was optimistic about the other books that just turned out to be rather mediocre, but with this, in combination with James being, well, James, I'm cautiously optimistic that it's going to be the book to break me out from the blah book streak. At this point, it could go in a lot of different ways, but I feel like Alicia's racial background is going to be problematic, and do I even need to say it? But Max is going to be creepy as anything towards her and pressure her into doing things. Thanks for listening to my book Snark on YouTube. New videos are up every Monday, but stick around because sometimes I drop random videos on other days too. You can like this video, subscribe, and turn on notifications so that you don't miss a single video. While you're waiting for the next video, you can go check out all my other videos. If you're already caught up with all of my videos, you can go to Tumblr for my main book Snarks, always free and updated every morning. And if you've already read all of my main Snarks, and you can find even more Snarks on my Patreon, you can access it for $1 a month. Plus, you get early access to my main Tumblr Snark. Special thanks to Dawn, Phoebe, and Nikki for supporting me on Patreon already. If you want to hear your name in my video next week, you either support me on Patreon or make a one-time donation. Do you like my Snark so much that you want me to snark your writing? I do that too. For just $3 per chapter, I will tell you how awful that your writing is. But not to worry if you feel like you couldn't take the criticism. I also offer regular book editing as well, $3 for every 5,000 words. You can contact me on Tumblr if you have further questions. If you want to read some of the things that I've written, you can purchase my works on Amazon. I have 19 erotic short stories, 1 short story collection, and 1 full-length novel. I also sometimes run flash sales on my stories, and if you don't follow me on any social media, you might want to do so just so you know when I might be offering more things for free. Links for everything will be posted below. See you next week, guys. Our She also mentions a door that she was told by the